the record should reflect that all 7 board members are still present. The first item is I withdrew board item with the Inspector General's evaluation because he's unexpectedly out of town, so it'll be rescheduled for the next meeting. And so it's been withdrawn. The Superintendent, do you have any items to? Items added. Yeah, there's one item that's been added. P2's been added. Good cause exists to add this item to allow for positions to be advertised as soon as possible. Mr. Superintendent, do you have anything that you want to withdraw?
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing to withdraw at this time.
All right. Any board items to be pulled from consent? Dr. Robinson?
I do not have anything to pull, but I would ask that we stop this practice of adding job descriptions late, because I really don't have enough time to explore what I would view to be unforeseen consequences. And so as a follow-up to that, we're going to discuss it anyway.
Okay. If there are no items to pull, we need a motion to approve the agenda. Motion by Mrs. Andrews, second by Dr. Robinson. All in favor, all opposed. Motion carries 7-0. Disclosures and abstentions, anybody? Seeing none, we'll move to superintendent comments.
Yes, sir. Quickly, I just want to say exactly 1 year ago today, the voters in Palm Beach County overwhelmingly approved the 2018 referendum. The referendum took effect on July 1st of this year and will mean an additional $203 million for district-operated schools in FY20. This video provides a quick overview of how the tax dollars raised through the referendum are benefiting our students, schools, and staff. Thank you. Eligible teachers began receiving retention supplements funded by the referendum on August 23rd. The referendum is also funding 170 behavioral health positions and funding 700 elementary art, music, PE, choice and career academy teachers. Millions of dollars are strengthening the security of our schools. In fact, school police just swore in an additional 5 officers, bringing the total number of sworn officers to the district to 237. It's important to understand that every dollar collected and spent is overseen by an independent referendum oversight committee of citizens and experts. For our public, please find more information on our website as it refers to the referendum, and thank you so much for all of your support.
Board comments? Ms. McQuinn? Ms. Whitfield?
Thank you. I just wanted to make mention of a teacher that we had that passed this past weekend, just because she was so amazing. Marianne Hedrick was a PE teacher at Lake Worth Middle School, and she spent the last 22 years in a wheelchair after an accident, and managed to be an amazing PE teacher from a chair with 60 students sometimes as her students. And I just was so impressed with her life, and the way she was such a light and an inspiration to others, and the volunteer work she did following the death of her friend Barry Greneau, and the work she did with him. She was a special person in our district, and I just felt like she needed to be mentioned today. Her funeral's going on right now, and I just want to say how much we're going to miss her and what a great job she did for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitfield. Ms. Burrow? Mrs. Andrews?
Yes, just a few things. I'd like to give everybody an update on the Muck Bowl activities. A great success. The fabulous banquet was held on Friday night, honoring the team and the cheerleaders for academics and athletics. It was a super, super duper time. When you see all the students dressed up, and then you see them the next day in their football uniforms and their pads, it's a whole new look. But at the banquet, It was awesome. We had a lot of professional football players there talking to the students about the next steps academically as well as for athletics. So it was great. And as far as the big game, you all know it was in the heat of everything, and Glade Central pulled it out within those last few minutes. So you know how that can be. But it really, truly is all about sportsmanship. We have two great teams, the Pahokee Blue Devils and the Glade Central Raiders. We think they're awesome. And I want to have a special thank you for everyone. It was so many people on Friday night and so many people on Saturday. I thank everyone, Ms. Moore, who is our region superintendent, and her team, and the teachers and everybody that was out there, but especially the chief of police, Chief Kissero, and his team. They were everywhere. We all felt so safe, and we were just in the spirit. Ms. Paul, I saw you out there cheering. Whew, it was big. It was really big. So it was exciting. I can tell you, you just have to wait till next year if you didn't experience it this year, because it was wonderful. And lastly, today, it was my pleasure to be with the United States Congressman Brian Mast at Royal Palm Beach High School. He was there to tell his story to the junior ROTC students in the Navy program at Royal Palm Beach High School. He has a fantastic story. It was very inspirational and inspiring. Dr. Fanoy, we brought greetings on your behalf to welcome him to the School District of Palm Beach County. And he said he was so happy to be there to speak to the students who were just perfect, and everything was great. And Ms. Paul, you're just following me around because you were there with me talking to the U.S. Congressman about how great you were in the military, the Army. So we've been having a great time in District 6, so I just wanted to share those two events with you. Thank you.
Dr. Robinson?
I hadn't planned to say anything, but since we're talking football, all I have to say is Rams on top. We're undefeated.
Mr. Shaw? No. We need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Shaw, second by Ms. Andrews. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Mr. Superintendent, that'll take us, nope, that's mine. BRD 2, South Florida Consortium of School Boards. I recommend the board vote on whether to rejoin the South Florida Consortium of School Boards. And we've had a lot of discussion on this, and one of the board members has asked us to finally bring it to a vote here. Mr. Shaw?
I move that, I'd like to make a motion that we rejoin the consortium, the South Florida Consortium.
Do we have a second on the motion? Seconded by Mrs. Whitfield. Discussion, Ms. Brill?
Well, first of all, it's not the South Florida Consortium, it's the Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards, so you'll need to make that correction. And I just want to go on record with the history, just on record, that when I was the president of the Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards, it was for the people that weren't here on the board at the time, when they brought, what happens is they transfer over the financial records. When Leanne Evans received those records, she raised several questions about the way it was structured and several concerns. And so we pursued those and eventually wound up through our general counsel questioning the way the organization is configured. It's configured as an organization, but it's not a formal organization, and they are tax exempt, but they're really not a tax exempt organization. So long story short, I had a lot of concerns that they were operating as an entity, which they weren't. If this board chooses to go back on the Greater Florida Consortium of School Boards, I ask that I be explicitly excluded from that membership, because I do not want to be a part of that, especially with the questions of the way the finances were handled. Thank you.
Mrs. Andrews?
And I want to thank Ms. Brill, because we worked really closely together, you know, when you were the president, as well as going to all of the meetings. And one of the things I must say is they have continued to send me, as well as I guess the rest of the board members here, all of the information of what's going on within the South Florida region. This is our South Florida region, which covers all the way to the Keys, to Collier County all the way up to Palm Beach. And the legislative piece is a piece that we really want to be ready for. And I feel that I've missed that. I recognize what Mrs. Brill has said. We did ask the General Counsel to let us know if there were some issues. I have heard nothing. So at this point in time, I really still want to get all that legislative information so that we can lobby Tallahassee to get the things that we need.
Ms. Whitfield?
Thank you. I also wanted to thank Ms. Brill for her comments. I've taken them very seriously. It was part of the reason that I voted previously to leave the Greater Consortium. I think, you know, though there are issues, and I agree that they do exist, after speaking with General Counsel, it sounds like, you know, they're minimal. And to me, I think to have representation of these South Florida communities that really are quite different from the rest of the state, I think is right now to me a more premier importance. So I would like to also join them again. I think this is something that we can benefit from. I do understand you're not wanting to be a part of it, though. I do see the risk there. I hope that risk is still minimal and that we will not get caught up, but I'm willing to take the risk at this point. Thank you.
Mrs. Rico?
Thank you. I just really wanted to clarify, to go back in history, what the question was and what the answer was. The question originally was, is this organization incorporated and is it a 501c3 organization? The answers to both of those were no. Does it matter from a standpoint of risk and liability for the board without doing any kind of audit or investigation on finances? I'm not really sure, you know, what their status is, and we weren't asked to look in that, and that would not be our role anyway. The organization is, as I understand it, loosely organized. They hold conference meetings at already scheduled other conferences in conjunction with that, as I understand it. So what is the liability to the board to join? There really isn't any liability that I can see. The only thing that I would caution any individual board member on is if the joining of this organization is as a group, as a whole. So I don't know that an individual board member can opt out. So that's something that we would need to look at. So if you vote, this board collectively votes yes, you're all in. So I don't think it's an individual participation anyway, so.
Go ahead, Ms. Brill.
I believe that something was sent to me at some point. I don't know if it was by your office or someone else that said we could expressly exempt ourselves from it. So I don't know, but we do get the information. And yes, it's good information, but I just, you know, for the reasons I stated and because of the way the finances and the checkbook was passed on and things like that, I don't want to be a part of it. So if you would please find that out. And
We'll
if
look
you
into
can
it.
exempt me, I'd rather be exempted, but at least I'm on record stating that I like to be exempt.
Great. Any other discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 6-1 with Ms. Brill in opposition. Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, sir. I recommend the board approve the school improvement plan for Glaze Academy and authorize the superintendent and/or his/her designee to sign all related correspondence and documents.
Sanders made the motion, second by Mr. Shaw. Any discussion? Mr. Shaw?
This one is simply, I promised Mr. Pegg that I would say something tonight to recognize he is back in the room after his retirement. And this is simply done to embarrass Mr. Pegg and say, welcome back. But that's my only comment.
Any other discussion, Mrs. Sanders?
And I can say that I love Glades Academy. Keep on doing the great work. It's great to see you all out here this
I'll
evening.
invite him up. If we could have Mr. Pegg and his team come forward to bring the information so the board can make their final decision based on your presentation.
Good evening. Good evening, Chairman Barberi, school board members, and Dr. Fournoy. My name is Phoenicia Jones, and I'm currently serving as the principal for Glades Academy. This is my 4th year. Basically, the school has been improving a letter grade of C for the last 2 school years. Unfortunately, this past school year, we did decline to a letter grade of a D. After some staff, board members, and consultants conducted reviews of our most recent data, we identified a few concerns or issues, and those being basically our winter diagnostics pointed to a continuous trend of growth. In school year 16-17, we improved from 32% to 42%, school year 17-18 from 42 to 44, and unfortunately, we experienced a decline from that 44% to a 33% D when we predicted ourselves at being a letter grade of C with a 47%. We also saw a decrease in our English language arts proficiency, which declined by 10%, and our reading learning gains also experienced a decrease. There were minor decreases in math proficiency as well as the math learning gains, and the most significant decrease we experienced was in our social studies, which declined by 23%. The results were unexpected and surprising to both myself, staff, and our board members. Our school is like a cohesive family, and we take this decrease in academic performance very seriously. In order to improve our school grade and academics at our school, we have implemented a few methods at our school. We are working with the charter school office to conduct year-to-year comparisons, and we also conduct walkthroughs in each of our classrooms. We allow individuals from the charter school office to come through, walk through the classroom, speak with our teachers, and to also assist us with instruction. We've identified a few operations that I myself can delegate to other staff members so that I'm able to be more involved in the classroom instruction. Our team has also attended a leadership conference this summer in Miami, and we have also improved our preschool staff development. We have hired an experienced literacy coach, which has experience on both the state and the district levels, and he's working to focus on literacy in all of our classrooms school-wide. We are focusing our teacher PLC meetings to focus on academic growth as well as improvement. We are also increasing our after-school, holiday, and Saturday tutorials. We have partnered with local agencies to provide student and family support, such as Bridges of Belgrade, Pahokee Family Services, and Sequel Youth Family Services. And we are also cross-comparing all the diagnostic data with the assistance of the Department of Charter Schools. Ultimately, we are working hard to create a balanced school program that has high expectations, focused on student academic growth and improvement. Thank you.
Questions?
Any questions?
Ms. Brill?
Thank you, and it's actually not a question. I just want to say that I had the pleasure of visiting Glades Academy a little more than a year ago, and I have to tell you that it's a very special school. You have some of our neediest students there, and you surround them with love and support. And, you know, we talk very frequently about how we don't think that the letter grades are necessarily the appropriate way to rate education, but the services that you surround those families with and the love and the care that you provide to those students, I absolutely support your school improvement plan, and I look forward to visiting you again.
Thank you.
Mrs. Andrews?
And thank you. I do get a chance to visit Glades Academy. I just love the city of Pahokee. You are a partner with them as I listen to your school improvement plan. I really feel confident you're going to do it. This is the first drop you've had. So
Yes.
I know that you're going to bring it back. And the community is involved with you as well as the school. And just keep the great work up, and I will come to see you very soon.
Thank you. We look forward to it.
Anybody else? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries
Thank
7-0. Thank you. P2, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, sir. I recommend the board approve the job descriptions as submitted.
Motion by Mr. Shaw, seconded by Mrs. Andrews. Discussion? Dr. Robinson?
So my question is, why is this on as urgently, or whatever the right word is? Is this time sensitive? What happens if it's not approved? Do the wheels stop turning?
Good evening. yes, if the item is pulled, that would stop the wheels turning for the approval of the job descriptions to move forward with hiring of staff into those positions.
No.
Sorry if I misunderstood.
What doesn't happen, if this is not approved,
Right.
if this got postponed to the next meeting, what doesn't happen? Like, I understand when a principal is on the agenda with short notice, somebody has to run the school. I just want this to stop. These job descriptions coming forward like they emergencies.
Understood. We can certainly make that happen.
Okay, I'm gonna just vote against it then, just because of the timing.
Any- Ms. McQuinn?
I agree with Dr. Robinson, and I would also like for attention to be made that when an emergency item is brought forward, that it is to put it's in an absolutely essential position that services to students don't stop, and that then the person needs to start immediately, not a later start date, because if it was a later start date, then we didn't need to approve it as an emergency. So again, I would like more time to study it. We had a lot to study coming up for this meeting, so I would prefer to have more time to look at it.
Ms. Brill?
Thank you, and I agree with the piece on more time, but I do have a question on the major for school police. That's not a new job description, correct? Okay, so you're just modifying it. So my question is, why, all you did was take out attends union negotiations. What is the rationale behind that?
You have to ask Chief Kitzrow to come up and explain that, but there are other changes to the qualifications besides that, if you'll note, and that's the reason it comes to the board.
Just as a follow-up, there's nothing that indicates there's any change other than removing that. So if
Number
there, oh, I
3.
see you also took out the 3 years in school police.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see that. So perhaps in the future you could put that in a different color, like red or something, because it's hard to see. Yeah, and I don't know if the purpose was added.
I'm sorry, Ms. Brill, I'm a little unprepared. I didn't realize this was coming up.
I just saw it now, so.
Well, I know. What was the question?
Well, my first question was why we were removing them attending the union negotiations. What was the rationale?
Typically, what we do is we have 1 or 2 designated people attend the union negotiations as opposed to the entire command staff.
So you have, but they've been doing it all along up until now, so you just...
I believe
okay.
so. I was just cleaning up the process just a little bit.
Okay, and the purpose, as Ms. Whitfield said, is that new also?
The not having them attend the
No, you have the description, because I'm trying to figure out what in here is new, and maybe it's
The
just my eyes.
purpose statement is new because it's bold and underlined,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. McQuinn?
This is regard to Chief Kitzrow's presentation earlier. I very much appreciated, not knowing ahead of time that I wanted it, but I appreciated when you made suggestions for changes that you told us why. This is why I made that. That might be very helpful when you bring something like this forward in terms of job descriptions, if we're just changing it.
All right, so just the board understands, when an item is put on for good cause, I'm asked by the board clerk, which I assume comes from the superintendent, to add an item on the agenda and read the good cause statement. So I guess, Mr. Superintendent, in the future, before I agree to add something to the agenda for good cause, that there's some rationale attached to that, so that it's explained not only to the board, but to me, or whoever the chair is, to make sure that we get the notice that we need, and if it's an emergency item, it's placed, and if it's not, it's not put on for good cause.
So I actually agree. The Chief of Staff and I had been talking around the number of last-minute items that were coming to the board as an issue. And so it was actually on our agenda to bring up to the team around, like, you have to get this stuff in on time or don't bring it at all. So this is another one of those procedural pieces that we just have to tighten up on our end so that Dr. LaCava's team's not forced to push things. You have to remember, his team is waiting on other people. So this is something that I need to handle. So I will do that moving forward.
Any other discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Robinson was opposed to that. And that takes us to the end of the agenda. Motion by Dr. Robinson, second by Mrs. Andrews. All in favor, all opposed. Meeting's adjourned.